Tonight on Ukraine Today, Ukrainian drones strike again. A fuel depot in Russia's Rostov region was hit. Fresh threats from the Kremlin. Activity spotted at a nuclear test site in the Novaya Zemlya archipelago. Russian terror continues. Bucha, alongside the Sumy and Dnipro regions, came under attack. Also in this episode, General Sirsky on ending Russia's war against Ukraine, President Trump on ramping up economic pressure on Russia, President Zelensky on direct talks with Putin and a possible trilateral meeting. All that and more, right now. Hi there, my name is Volodymyr Robchun. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and let's get into the news. Ukrainian drones struck a fuel depot in Russia's Rostov region, located near an airfield. One of the storage tanks caught fire. In just the past 24 hours, Russia lost at least 1,040 troops killed and wounded. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, that's bringing the total to over 1,061,350 soldiers. Also in the past day, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 7 Russian tanks, 7 armored vehicles, 52 artillery systems and dozens more pieces of enemy hardware. Minister of Defense of the Netherlands, Ruben Brekelmans, visited Ukrainian troops training in the United Kingdom. He observed NATO standard drills and stated that Russia is a threat to all of Europe, and therefore to the Netherlands as well. As talks swirl about a possible ceasefire and an end to the Russia's war, Ukraine's commander-in-chief Alexander Sirsky shared his view in an interview with journalist Natalia Nahorna.
Well, I see that this war must end in a way that benefits us, and we must do everything to make that happen. That means we have to win, not retreat. We must destroy the enemy. We have to inflict on them such losses that they decide to end this war. And importantly, they need to end it not from a position of strength, but on our terms. That is what's crucial for us right now.
Meanwhile, Russian forces attacked the Kiev region. Bucha was hit. Private homes, a church, cars and a kindergarten were damaged. Thankfully, no one was killed.
We've once again seen how Russia, cowardly at night, strikes civilian residential infrastructure in our towns. Russia is a terrorist state, and the whole world needs to know it, to understand it, so that Russia is never welcome anywhere again, after all the killings and atrocities it commits against Ukrainians.
In the Sumy region, Russians used attack drones. Residential buildings, car and a local store were damaged. A 54-year-old man was injured. Dnipro region was also targeted. Private homes, a dormitory, garages and utility buildings were hit by drones and artillery. Germany has restored a Patriot radar unit that was nearly destroyed by a Russian attack. The system was transported to Germany, where experts initially estimated it would take years to replace the damaged parts. Instead, they found a way to repair it. The radar is now back in Ukraine, up and running, helping intercept enemy targets. Just yesterday, Ukraine's air defense forces downed 82 of 112 enemy drones. Today in Kiev, people said their final goodbyes to journalist Victoria Roshina, who died in Russian captivity. Since 2022, she had reported from temporary occupied territories. Russian forces abducted and brutally tortured her. May her memory be eternal. Russian troops are arriving in Belarus, officially for the West 2025 military drills. But there's a catch. Back in 2022, similar so-called exercises served as cover for the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So the question is, are we once again witnessing preparation for the expansion of Russia's war?
The first train carrying Russian troops and equipment has arrived in Belarus. Everything is by the book, loud statements and promises of strong friendship. But what is really behind this latest wave of allied activity?
Today, the military alliance between Russia and Belarus is an essential condition for the further development of our countries. This is of great importance given the current threats. With the start of the special military operation, this became one of the top priorities, said a serviceman of the Russian armed forces.
The Belarusian Ministry of Defense immediately reported preparations have begun for the strategic exercises Zapad 2025, which are scheduled for September. They insist that the maneuvers are supposedly routine and are held every 2 years. But history teaches us it was precisely under the guise of exercises in 2021 that Russia moved its troops to the Ukrainian border and already at the beginning of 2022 launched a full-scale invasion.
The first echelons with military equipment that arrived in Belarus, they can be used both for practicing coordination and for further buildup of strike forces.
And although the official scenario of the exercises is still classified, its direction is obvious. After all, the playbook is the same, the scenario is the same: troop redeployment, creation of a strike force, preparation for future operations, all the things the aggressor used to start the large-scale war with Ukraine.
In this case, coordination between Ukraine and our Western partners is necessary in order to send a signal, I believe, not only to the Russian Federation, but also to Belarus about the inadmissibility of using these exercises as a cover for preparing offensive actions. After all, we understand that the Russians still have the temptation, for example, to open a northern front against Ukraine or to launch a special operation against, say, the Suwalki corridor. Obviously, that would involve Poland, that would involve Lithuania. There are various scenarios.
The key question remains the scale. So far, the official statements mention 12, 13 or 14,000 servicemen. However, according to intelligence from the Baltic states, up to 150,000 troops could be involved in the maneuvers. If these numbers are confirmed, it would be the largest concentration of troops on NATO's eastern flank in recent years.
The Russian Federation and Belarus will downplay the actual number of servicemen participating in these exercises. Therefore, the risks will remain. But let's see to what extent, in this case, the preventive process will actually work. After all, we remember how even Keller himself came to visit Lukashenko. We also remember a number of statements and the current redeployment of those same German Eurofighter jets to Poland, and many other actions involving the redeployment, specifically of servicemen to NATO's eastern flank.
At the same time, other alarming steps are emerging. For example, a new airborne assault brigade is being formed in Belarus. Where do you think? Of course, right at the Ukrainian border. This was announced by the commander of the Belarusian Special Operations Forces, Vadim Denisenko. According to him, the units are being stationed in the Gomel region, north of Chernihiv and Kiev regions.
As of today, this is, so to speak, the most tense direction, which keeps all of us on alert. That's why the decision was made to create a separate airborne assault brigade there. And as of now, we have already begun forming this brigade. One of the battalions has already been formed.
We are talking about the 37th Guards Airborne Assault Brigade. Its formation is part of a large-scale strengthening of the Belarusian army. New artillery and anti-aircraft missile units are also being created. And on top of that, the parliament is discussing rewriting the law on martial law to expand the powers of the president, the Security Council, and the Ministry of Defense.
Currently, Vladimir Putin is heavily relying on several crucial pillars that support his regime and power. The first pillar is the belief that the Ukrainian response is an anomaly and that such resistance will not occur in European countries. The second significant assertion being made is that Article 5 of the NATO-Washington Treaty is, in essence, a complete and utter myth, and that the alliance, in a practical sense, will not be able to provide an adequate or sufficient response to any potential threats or aggressions. And the third crucial pillar is the deeply held belief that China will significantly strengthen the strategic position of the Russian Federation in terms of comprehensive economic and political cooperation and collaboration, because it is beneficial for China to put the United States in a difficult position, and thus, while the US is occupied with Russia and Europe, China will resolve the Taiwan issue.
Without a doubt, the Zapad 2025 exercises are a challenge not only to Ukraine, but to the entire region. Despite the fact that, according to the Ukrainian State Border Guard Service, there are currently no signs of a threat to our country, Kyiv is preparing for any outcome, as are its Western allies. Poland has already announced, in response to the actions of Moscow and Minsk, that it will hold its own large-scale exercises, Iron Defender, with the participation of NATO allies. The question now is whether these exercises will remain merely a show of force or become yet another round of escalation. Only time will tell.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Ukraine is fighting for freedom. Support independent Ukrainian journalism so we can keep telling the truth about Russia's war. Click the link in the description to become our sponsor. And please, like this video and share it. It's easy for you, helpful for the channel, and YouTube's algorithm loves it. Thank you. The Kremlin is flexing its nuclear muscles again. This time it's not the infamous Oreshnik, but the Burevestnik, a nuclear cruise missile. New activity has been detected at the test site of Novaya Zemlya archipelago. Details next.
Russia is preparing new tests for one of its 5 types of so-called wonder weapons. We're talking about the Burevestnik missile, which has been dubbed the Flying Chernobyl in the US. All because of its nuclear engine.
The missile is dangerous because if the reactor is destroyed, if it's shot down, or if it, say, crashes or has an accident, then quite a large area will be contaminated. And no reasonable person wants that. That's why the Americans abandoned this environmentally unfriendly project back then.
Nuclear weapons expert Decker Eveleth has pointed out that the Kremlin is preparing to test its own analog of this weapon. According to him, this is evidenced by increased activity at the Pankovo test site on the Novaya Zemlya archipelago. In addition, the possibility of tests is also indicated by the fact that the United States has sent an Air Force radiation reconnaissance aircraft to Novaya Zemlya. This aircraft is equipped with sensors for monitoring nuclear tests. Later, Newsweek noted that the aircraft took off from the British airbase Mildenhall and circled over the Barents Sea for about 14 hours.
If it explodes, it will contaminate everything around it. That's why, as soon as the Russians start talking about planning to test something and begin actively flexing their wings over there, well, immediately some kind of American reconnaissance plane or radiation level monitor is sent to that area, starts circling, and records everything that's happening.
The development of the Burevestnik began in Russia back in 2001, but it was only in 2018 that Putin publicly announced it. He did so with great pomp, claiming that its range was unlimited and its flight path could be unpredictable. During this time, Russia tested the Burevestnik 13 times, and all attempts ended in failure. Although one is actually considered a success, on that occasion, the Russian wonder weapon managed to fly as far as 35 kilometers.
Out of the 13 launches, all were unsuccessful. One launch when the missile flew 35 kilometers in 2 minutes. And this is considered the most successful launch because at that time they managed to record all the parameters they wanted to capture. There is also a theory that when the major accident happened in Nusek, that this accident was actually connected, this disaster when people died and there was a large radiation release, that it was connected, according to one version, with this Burevestnik missile.
Putin didn't pull the Burevestnik out of his nuclear arsenal for no reason. This is another tool of intimidation.
There is such a stir created around it. Russia is terribly big, terribly powerful. It has a ton of weapons. It has 5,500 nuclear warheads. True, it is unknown in what condition. But apart from Burston, probably no one knows. Next. Trump's ultimatum deadline is approaching, and now something needs to be done. That's why air traffic over Kapustin Yar is being shut down, so that everyone starts thinking about what will be tested there, whether it's the Burevestnik that's going to fly or something else. Then the whole world gets tense. Then they announce that there will be more tests of the Burevestnik missile or something else.
Can the Russians conduct a Burevestnik test? Probably they can. Will it be successful? In Russia, they'll say yes. But as statistics from previous tests show, only the Russians themselves might suffer from this launch.
Siemens equipment is helping Russia make explosives. That's according to Reuters, which exposed another case of sanctions evasion. Russian manufacturers reportedly received Siemens tech through a Chinese intermediary that did not disclose the final recipient. And speaking of sanctions, the United States is expected to increase financial pressure on Russia today. Just 10 days ago, President Donald Trump renewed his ultimatum to Putin. He had until today to make a deal with Ukraine. He didn't. Yesterday, Trump briefly spoke with reporters, and here's what he said.
Is your deadline still standing for Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire tomorrow, or is that fluid now?
It's going to be up to him. We're going to see what he has to say. It's going to be up to him. Very disappointed, yeah.
Does Putin have to meet with Zelensky in order and before you and Putin have to meet? Or
No.
As you saw and heard, a journalist also asked about a possible meeting with Putin. And the idea of direct talks was echoed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Of course, everyone clearly understands that all key decisions in Russia are made by one person and that this person fears US sanctions. And it's only fair that Ukraine be a part of the negotiations. Russia's war is against Ukraine, against our independence, which represents the independence of every European nation. So, the format of meetings, of leaders meeting, includes, among others, a trilateral format. And yesterday, we discussed this in detail. Several bilateral formats, a trilateral format, all possible options. I'm grateful to President Trump for being open to finding real solutions.
And finally, Russia is running out of passenger planes. Sanctions because of the war are taking their toll. The Kremlin tried to lease aircraft from Ethiopia, but failed. Passenger air travel inside Russia is becoming more dangerous by the day. More on that in the next report.
A new embarrassment for Putin. The Russian authorities asked to lease planes from Ethiopia, but were refused.
I proceed from the assumption that we will continue to fly.
Russia is under sanctions from the United States, and Ethiopian Airlines has strong operational and commercial ties with the U.S. We operate in accordance with international law and are not prepared to violate it. Ethiopian Airlines is currently expanding its operations and also needs additional aircraft.
Air service with Ethiopia was established by Russia in 2018, but the share of flights is small and the resources of Ethiopian Airlines are definitely insufficient to solve the problems in Russian aviation.
These airlines are very important for the facilitation of various essential activities such as international trade, the promotion of tourism, and numerous other significant economic and cultural activities that various African countries diligently conduct in their ongoing relations with the Russian Federation. Especially at this crucial juncture, when the Russian Federation is actively and diligently working a great deal on fostering and strengthening the diplomatic and economic relations between Russia and the various nations across the African continent.
Russia has already tried to make similar deals with Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Qatar and Kuwait, but nothing came of it. At the same time, people are still being told that everything is fine and that hundreds of their own airplanes will appear any day now.
And we plan to produce well over 1,000 airplanes by the year 2030. These will be our very own domestically manufactured airplanes. At this present moment, one of the absolutely main and most crucial tasks, of course, is the significant production of civil aircraft. This is our top priority. If we talk about the MC-21, more than 70 systems and components have already been produced domestically in Russia as part of import substitution. In August, a fully import-substituted aircraft will already take off. I was just at the factory in Irkutsk. There, a total of 14 fuselages are almost completely ready and standing by, and an additional 9 are in the final stages of their completion. As for the Superjet, our Superjet is also now fully import-substituted, meaning it relies entirely on domestic components and technology.
But the number of accidents due to the lack of imported parts is only increasing, and more of them are fatal. Last year, the number of incidents rose by 30% compared to the previous year, but the Russian authorities are trying to hide the statistics.
Today, a Ufa-Omsk flight sent out a distress signal.
The aircraft caught fire during takeoff.
The day before, a flight from Magadan could have ended dramatically.
And people are worried about whether it's safe.
it turns out there were 670 incidents in 2023. But immediately they clarify and say that's 1.3% less than what was initially anticipated or projected, a notable reduction.
Than the previous year.
Than the previous year. When I read things like this, what does it even mean? 1.3% less? And what about last year? How was it? Was that normal?
Yes.
But these failures have become more serious. So, for example, if before, say, engine failure cases happened and were not uncommon, now it happens very often. In such a short period of time, I mean, this is official statistics, there are about 2,000 overdue spare parts. That is, if a part is supposed to be replaced, say, after 1,000 hours, but instead it's replaced after 1,200 or 1,300 hours to save money, then...
That's already unsafe.
That's already unsafe.
For example, take the recent incident with the crash of a 60-year-old AN-24. For many months before the accident, passengers had been filming videos and writing to the airline about malfunctions during flights. 48 people died.
Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations rescuers arrived at the crash site. According to preliminary inspection, there are no survivors at the crash site.
I want to emphasize that it is important not to allow excessive increases in ticket prices while unconditionally ensuring the quality of passenger service and flight safety. These issues should be a priority for both carriers and the Ministry of Transport, as well as other relevant agencies.
But the situation is not improving, and Russian lawmakers are busy with more serious matters.
Dear Vyacheslav Viktorovich, here is the magazine of a major Russian airline, where our citizens, passengers, are being offered French, Italian, and Spanish wines. The same situation exists in other airlines. In other words, we are essentially promoting wine products from countries that are unfriendly to us, while they, in turn, supply weapons to Kiev.
And those responsible for technology in Russia are complaining that they have been left alone with their problems.
There is probably not a single country in the world that produces 100% of the components for its own airplanes. For comparison, both Boeing and Airbus have about 9 such global suppliers, major companies around the world that provide components for their aircraft. But we are forced to do everything ourselves, on our own.
When was there ever such a country? The Soviet Union.
Exactly. That's how it was in the Soviet Union.
They just forget to add that they have to twist and turn, lie, and put their own citizens at risk of death every day, all because one bloodthirsty old man, instead of retiring, wanted some action.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. Strength to Ukraine's defenders. Glory to Ukraine. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. See you next time.